Good morning and welcome to all of you. First, it's an incredible honor and privilege to be in conversation with Mr. Gopalkrishna Gandhi. And this book, which is a collection of about 100 essays that he had written for the Telegraph, for the Hindustan Times, for the Hindu, for the Frontline, some are for the Seminar and other publications, is an incredible collection for a couple of reasons. Well, the title is intriguing because it's India and her futures. But what Mr. Gandhi always does is he kind of collapses time. There's as much past in it, which could be a future. And there are multiple pasts. That's also in plural. And he always brings the present in every one of his essays in an incredibly subtle and, if I may say so, sophisticated manner. The reader has to engage, to listen to the subtext, not just read, but listen to the subtext. And it is truly quite beautiful to see how his commentary just passes on and smudges the past, present, and futures and looks at possibilities and ideas beyond just specificities. This collection has her whole set on various ideas of India, on personalities, on events, but all of them go back to some fundamental ethics and fundamental values that I believe that he's always sharing with the public. So I'm going to start, Gopal, with a question on, we are in Tamil Nadu, so I'm going to start up with the Malayaga Tamils. An essay you wrote on the 200th year of their arrival in Sri Lanka, and since you were also engaged a lot in Kandy and in Colombo, I want you to talk about the community and about what you saw in the changes in the community, which you also refer to in the essay.
Religion is vital in the life of India, and particularly so in the life of Tamil Nadu. There is a natural piety, a natural devotion, almost a natural tendency to worship, very prominent in Tamil Nadu. And that moves from devotion to the Almighty in her or his many forms to devotion to individuals. It's a very natural transition from one to the other, and people who are in the field of religion, I would not say who are in the business of religion, but who are in the field of religion, provide a kind of bridge. And so devotion to individuals who are related to religion is very natural. I would have thought that in our times, where science and technology and commerce are booming, religion will yield place to those. But in Tamil Nadu, it has not done so. It has found the two, religion and commerce and industry and science, almost fluxing and becoming one. That is an interesting development, and to me, who is neither very religious and has no technology or commerce in me, that makes me somewhat distant from what is happening. And so the change that I have noticed over the years is a change which may be welcomed, which may be described as a welcome change. But to me is somewhat puzzling because I don't know where this will end, where it will go. I find it somewhat disturbing sometimes to see the hold of commerce and religion together. And I will give you a very bizarre example. It is truly bizarre and maybe even called morbid. The rites of birth, rites meaning R-I-T-E-S, of birth, marriage, and death are very important in our state, in Tamil Nadu. But on the occasions when I have to attend with grief in my heart and sadness in my mind, the departure of somebody valued by me, I shudder at what I see, because even the funeral van has deities on one side and commerce on the other, giving the name of the undertaker in big words, the undertaker's name and pictures of the god. And this is not enough. I am being morbid, horrible thing to do on a Sunday morning, please forgive me, but Krishna has led me into it. But even in the crematorium, at the entrance to where fire is going to take over, there is a huge image of a god, and next to it, a commercial advertisement about the crematorium. I find that very off-putting, which is why I feel a great alternative that has been made available in Tamil Nadu. I am being even more morbid, but really not so. If you take it seriously, not morbid at all. The other day, a highly distinguished academic whom I have great respect for, she opted for her remains to go to the medical college. A neat van from the medical college carried her into what may be called eternity, but through the pathway of science. Tamil Nadu is advancing brilliantly into the modern age, carrying religion with it. But Krishna, to complete my answer, the change I notice is not from the old to the new, but with the old into the new. But I am not sure whether what should be dropped in the old is being dropped as we move into the old. We seem to be carrying the baggage, the luggage, the waste, and the garbage of the old into the new.
Since we spoke about the Tamils in Tamil Nadu, what about the Tamils in Sri Lanka? The Tamils of the hill country, the Malayaga Tamils, are they different Tamils? Are they the same Tamils?
The Tamils in Sri Lanka are an extraordinary community like the Tamils in Tamil Nadu and anywhere. And I'll give you two reasons for it. There are, of course, as everybody in this gathering knows, two distinct Tamil communities in Sri Lanka, a distinction which is known in Sri Lanka, but not known in India very much. The north of India is fairly ignorant about the details of the south of India, and it cannot be expected to know minuter details in the Sri Lankan part of this subcontinent. But the two Tamil communities, the more than a millennia-old Tamils of the north and east, are quite distinct from the 150 or 200-year-old Tamil community in the central highlands, the Malaya Tamil, who are extraordinarily gifted plantation workers. Both these communities would make anyone with a Tamil connection extraordinarily proud. Those in the north and the east of Sri Lanka are hugely literate, hugely literate. Jaffna is one of the most amazing towns in its architecture, in its sanitation, in its cleanliness. And there is, of course, also the Nallur temple right at the heart of it. But the city is planned in architectural finesse at right angles. Roads are in right angles, extraordinarily clean and neat. Literacy, of course, as I said, is very high. And I asked my friends there, we were there, my wife and our children and I, for 6-7 years in 2 spells. I asked, how is it that a little sliver of water divides Tamil Nadu from Sri Lanka. Just as one could actually swim across if one was, say, Mihir Shen. But that sliver of water divides so hugely. Why is it that our own villages on the other side and the villages on this side of the sliver of water are so different? And I got an answer which I was startled to receive. The hierarchy of caste in India is not there in Sri Lanka. I wanted to ask more details, but I shriveled in some coyness because I didn't want to enter into a discussion on communities. But I got the message. So there is no caste in Sri Lanka's Tamil areas which oppresses other communities within the same Tamil community, saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't touch this, you can't read this, you can't. So everyone has progressed. And Christianity has played its role, Buddhism has played its role. The Tamils of Sri Lankan ancient, or rather early origin, are a highly advanced people, extraordinarily advanced, which is why the cult of violence which has been forced into them is so unnatural and so unfortunate. The Malaya Tamil are extraordinary for another reason. No literacy levels can match them with the Tamils of North and East. But their skills are amazing in plantation work. And sad to say, if politics has introduced terror and violence in the North, another kind of politics has permeated the Tamils of Sri Lanka in the sense of singular domination in the villages, not ununderstandable, has made them a very self-conscious community. Their plantations, as in every place, are isolated, making them feel self-conscious. And on top of it, bilateral politics, India and Sri Lanka. Nehru said famously, when he was told that the Indian plantation workers, by Indian I mean Indian origin Tamil plantation workers, should go back to India. This was a demand made by Sinhala extremists. And Nehru said, I'm sure in his mind he said, what rubbish. But I don't think he said those words, but he meant those words, and he said, they should not come back. Why should they? If Indians are in Germany for 10 years, they can become German nationals. These people have been here for 100 years. Why should they not become Sri Lankan, Ceylon nationals? And the exact words he said was, Tamil plantation workers in Sri Lanka should be or are citizens of Sri Lanka or Ceylon. They should be or are citizens. But this changed. And an agreement was signed between the two countries in which I had to play a part because I was working in Sri Lanka as a consequence of that agreement. Large number of them have come back to India. India agreed to repatriate a large number of them. Nehru would not have, but this was done later. Tragedy has befallen those who come from Sri Lanka's plantations to India because they return to India having acquired the skills of plantation labor, but our plantations can't absorb them. So they have to be given petty loans to set up businesses which they are not used to. It's difficult for them. It's difficult. So the Tamils of Sri Lanka require deep understanding, sensitive handling, and great respect. Great respect. Tamil Nadu has its own limitations. The state has its limitations. It can't absorb them easily, but it is doing an amazing job. In the same community, Krishna, we have this extraordinary cricketer, Murali, of the Dusra. It has produced Murali. It has also produced amazing writers and also people who understand and appreciate your music in Sri Lanka. I'll end this answer by saying that Jaffna has one of the greatest libraries of Tamil literature that any place in the world can have. And it has risen like phoenix from the ashes, for it was burnt down. It was burned down by Sinhala extremists in what can be called biblioclasm or libricide. And India has helped them to bring it back. And any one of you, can I just ask, how many of you have been to Jaffna? A small number. Please do. Before you go to Japan, please go to Jaffna and go to the library and see what riches of Tamil Nadu, of Tamil, flourish there.
Thank you, Gopal. Since you began with some morbidity, I will continue in the refrain of anxieties. The collection of essays also reflects some of your anxieties, and there are some themes that I feel keep coming back in more than one essay. And I want to touch upon two of them. One is the nuclear question. There is one essay about nuclear disarmament, signing of the treaty for no first use between Rajiv Gandhi and Benazir Bhutto. And then you describe the day when India conducted its second nuclear test. And it's a very moving essay because what I could read is also the struggle between the bureaucrat who is playing a role and the person, and having to straddle two kind of faces in some manner. And how does one reconcile that conflict? And you head, if I remember right, to the Birla Mandir that day, on the day that the second test was done. And you also reflect upon why would we ever name our first nuclear test Smiling Buddha. And I want to talk about this anxiety, the anxiety of the nuclear question and the dangers that it poses for all of us as a civilization.
I never understanding of why it is that we in India discuss the minutiae of the nuclear option, whether for energy or in ballistics, but do not talk about the dangers of the nuclear threat to humanity as we used to. We will go into CTBT and NPT, but what about disarmament? We don't talk about it. And I'll tell you why I think it is very sad that we don't. It is a commonplace that the dangers that Oppenheimer visualized dramatically when he quoted the Buddha and said, "I am become death." It is a commonplace. That danger is now really abstract and theoretical. That after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which was in August 1945, there has been no atom bomb going off anywhere, no nuclear test, no nuclear explosion anywhere in any combat situation. So why are you worried? That is a delusion. The fact that hundreds of tests have been conducted, nuclear tests have been conducted, the word test masks the reality of those tests. Every test is a Hiroshima or a Nagasaki outside a human target. But every test enfouls the atmosphere, weakens the geology of the area, and makes the possibility of another serious explosion in combat that much more real. Today, the number of atomic weapons in the world in terms of aircraft deliverable, missile deliverable nuclear warheads is in 4 digits. Can I ask one more question? And I'm asking this question to myself and Krishna as I ask it to this gathering. How many of us know the number of nuclear warheads India has? In this gathering of, how many do you think we are?
We have about 200, 300 people, maybe 200.
Only 2 know how many nuclear warheads India has. Now, I believe this is not a secret. It is something which we can Google. About 160 nuclear warheads. If we have 160, Pakistan has to have 162. If we have 165, Pakistan will have 167. Now, these are like, assuming, these are like firecrackers which are on the Deepavali stalls. They're like that. Why is that a danger? It is a danger, of course, because firecrackers can burn. We know fire accidents. But more than that, it's a danger because we know what happened after Pahalgam. The horror of the terrorist attack in Pahalgam. It was so obscene what the terrorists did. Selecting and shooting tourists according to religion. An extraordinary calibration of restraint and retaliation was shown by India. But one more twist in the tension or one more act of horror, and who knows on which side the temptation to press the nuclear button would have occurred. We were this close to nuclear war. And I am not quoting Mr. Trump. This is common sense. This is Mr. Common Sense, not Mr. Trump. Russia has said that it no longer believes in its nuclear doctrine, which placed restraints on itself. Today, Russia's official policy is that it will retaliate with nuclear weapons if even a non-nuclear state, which is an alliance with a nuclear state, provokes it. So Russia has virtually said to the world, watch out. We have the nuclear bomb and we will use it, whether you are a nuclear state or not, nuclear weapon state or not. What Mr. Trump has said, we know. What Mr. Trump has done, we know. The possibility of an instant and an instantly decimating nuclear apocalypse is very real. Let us know that. Nuclear error, nuclear terror, and nuclear design are realities as much as the air pollution in Delhi is a reality. You should know that. And I will conclude this answer of mine to Krishna's question by saying, please do not mind my being a part-time teacher. I'm used to asking those who are listening to me questions. Please raise your hand, and my students defer to me and my age, and they raise their hand. Very honestly, it was very revealing. But I'll just ask this. I was discussing this with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law this morning. India has to contend with an extraordinary seismic reality. Seismologists have told us that a huge, big quake in the Himalayas is now not due, overdue. From Afghanistan through to Myanmar, that entire, where the Eurasian plate and the Indian plate are jamming into each other, a huge earthquake is now overdue. Why am I saying this, and what does this have to do with the nuclear question? It has this. India and Pakistan have nuclear reactors, atomic reactors, which we need, I suppose, because of various reasons. I'm not going into that. But a large number of them are located in zone 4, which is the most vulnerable zone seismically. We know how dangerous dams are in areas which are under seismic threat. But we have man-made dams and man-made reactors. Precisely when we set up the reactors for reasons into which, again, I'm not going, we did not think of the seismological risk, but we have. So, and I'm asking this question to just show to ourselves, including me, how much we need to know. Not how little we know, but how much more we need to know. Do we know how many reactors there are in India? How many know the number of atomic reactors in India? In this ground? Some know, but out of modesty, they have not raised their hands. But that is the number. How many of these reactors are in seismologically dangerous areas? None of us know. But I will tell you this. Mani Shankar Iyer, with whom I have the pleasure of being in disagreement on many issues, Mani Shankar Iyer, who provokes me when I need to sleep by his comments, has a wonderful book recently published on Rajiv Gandhi. And he quotes Rajiv Gandhi saying the following. Krishna, you may have read it. Rajiv Gandhi told, when he was Prime Minister, Mani was working for him, said, Mani, you know, both we, India and Pakistan, the nuclear explosions can take place any time. So, don't you know that? No. Have you heard of the kamikaze? Yes. All it needs is for an aeroplane to bang into one of our reactors, say, a kamikaze taking off from anywhere in Pakistan, bangs into the reactor in Bombay, and that will be a nuclear holocaust. That will be a nuclear cataclysm. So it can happen today. So we have so many reactors. It is true that we have defense systems by which we will spot any aircraft coming, true. And I don't think there are many kamikazes in Pakistan. But the possibility is there, not because non-state actors are a reality. Terrorists are a reality. And they have long fingers and poisonous nails, and we don't know when a kamikaze can attack. Nuclear warheads are the result of bilateral disputes, of political suspicions, of a legacy from 1945 onwards of international distrust. Disarmament is not being talked about. India, with China and Pakistan on its either sides, has had its share of nuclear options laid out for it. But let us know that we are living under the cobra's head every moment. I think at this point, a card was given to Krishna. I don't know whether it was to say we have exceeded our time or whether to say Mr. Gandhi is too morbid.
As you can see, Mr. Gandhi has eyes all over, and age is not in any way diminished that. In the collection of essays, there are many personalities who keep coming back. And I am not talking about Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. And I don't intend to ask him a question about him. There are a lot of people who keep coming back. Dalai Lama keeps coming back. Mandela is there. Another person who appears many times, and I think it's important to refer to him, is Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And both, he talks about Patel himself as he was passing, and also his relationship with Nehru, and the fact that the Congress did wantonly forget him. And it is also true he's been wantonly appropriated onto the other side. So I'm going to try and squeeze one more question after this. So I want you to speak about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, about this entire picturization of him to be this almost Hindu hyper-nationalist, chest-beating nationalist. Because every time you hear about him, even phrases like the Iron Man of India is not an isolated phrase. Like, it is also saying somebody is not the Iron Man. In some manner, you're always referring to the fact that Nehru was weak. So this pitting of the two people has always happened. And also placing Patel as being somebody who would not embrace the idea of India that you very often write about in your essays. Can you just briefly talk about Patel in this context?
Thank you for asking me. This is a total surprise of a question. But I'll preface my answer by saying, I think I also know why Krishna has identified Sardar Patel, because in the non-Telugu, non-Tamil repertory of Krishna's amazing spectrum of music, when Krishna sings Vaishnava Janato, which is a Gujarati song, the heavens weep. This is Krishna. And when he sings Vaishnava Janato, he was once asking me about one or two lines in Vaishnava Janato, and he asked me to check if he had got it right. And I said something, and I was wrong and he was right. He's a master of the Gujarati songs that he sings so magically. So Sardar Patel is a natural subject, Krishna, for you to ask. It has come not just from your interest in my writing, but from your sensitivity. There are three typecastings in India's history which we should know are wrong. One is that Nehru was an impulsive man. Nehru was quick on reflexes, but he was not some madly impulsive man doing crazy things just because he wanted to be different. He was not impulsive. Rajaji was an intellectual. Of course, he had a very sharp brain, but Rajaji was one of the most human of persons. Third typecasting, which is wrong, is that Sardar Patel was the doer, the ground level manager of the party, the integrator of the state by telling the princes to get lost. And he was fundamentally and foundationally an adversary to Nehru. Wrong. Yes, of course, Sardar Patel was a doer. He came from the stock of the Patidar community, which knows what it is to grapple with drought, to grapple with floods, to grapple with something called unjust levies of land revenue when there is a drought. He was the organizer of satyagrahas. Sardar Patel knew how to handle life and humans. But Sardar Patel was also an extraordinarily sensitive human being. And Krishna, you will be interested to know this. I'm fast forwarding to his end. A few hours before Sardar Patel died, he was heard by his daughter singing Krishna, singing. He was singing, Mangala Mandir Kholo Dayamay. Mangala Mandir Kholo Dayamay. Open the gates and doors of the great temple of afterlife. And a few days before he died, he told a gathering of congressmen, Nehru is our leader. Nehru is our leader. And he was, to give you another example of his humanity, he was, of course, completely devoted to Gandhi, but devoted not as some kind of a worshipper, but as a person who has seen the intellectual and spiritual power of the Mahatma. But he was equally devoted to Kasturba. And he said, I am where Ba and Bapu have placed me, that is Deputy Prime Minister. Jawaharlal is our leader. And as on a stretcher he was being wheeled into the plane in Delhi to go to Bombay where he died, his colleague N.V. Gadgil, who was in the cabinet, who was called a Patelite, came up and sobbing and said goodbye. And Sardar told Gadgil at the airport, whatever happens, do not leave Jawahar. So what are we talking about when we say that Patel was antagonistic to Jawahar? He was a realist enough to know his strengths and Nehru's weaknesses, and Nehru's strengths and his own weaknesses. I should say one more thing and conclude. They were in jail together, Patel and Gandhi, long term in the Yerawada jail. Patel had a great sense of humor also. As soon as you say somebody who has a sense of humor, oh, you have a great sense of humor, you have taken away the humor. Just as somebody tells Krishna, you're a great musician, you take away the music from him. It's obvious that you have a great sense of humor. He had a great sense of humor. Let me say it, though it's a silly thing to say. And Gandhi was in one of his moods of depression, and Gandhi was entitled to be in mood of depression. He may be Mahatma, but he was also Mohandas. He was very depressed. He says to Sardar, I don't think Swaraj is coming. I am ready to go now. Sardar said, what are you talking? What are you talking? Ready to go, ready to go. You were telling, you have got us to climb onto your shaky boat, and now you are saying you want us to drown. You first take us to the shore, and then you go where you like. And you may think, Sardar was the man who did huge things, the Kheda Satyagraha, which made him Sardar, Bardoli Satyagraha, integration of states. But there was something else which he did in jail. Do we have 2 minutes?
Yes. What do you need that for?
I'll tell you. The British jails were very hard, but they were very good in one thing. They allowed paper to be given to the prisoners, letters to be received by this class of prisoners. So Gandhi and Patel got lots of letters. So reply, badal anapanamolya. How do you write? So they got paper to write the reply. Cover, envelope venamolya. So they could buy envelopes, but then Gandhi and Sardar said, we will not spend money on buying envelopes. Paper we get to write because we get the letters. We will make our own envelopes. So when letters were received with writing only on one side and the back was vacant, they made envelopes. And Gandhi knew how to make envelopes, but then Sardar learned how to make envelopes, and he made the most beautiful envelopes. Sudha Ravi, who is here, a great patron of the handicrafts, will appreciate this. Sardar Patel made perfect envelopes, 5 folds, keeping the handwritten portion on the inside and the blank portion outside, perfect symmetry. And Sardar made so many beautiful envelopes that in one of his letters, Gandhi said, Swaraj or no Swaraj, I know what we are going to do when we are released. Sardar and I are going to set up a stationery shop. He will make the envelopes. I will sell the envelopes. He is a patidar, he makes. I am a baniya who sells. And then another thing. Great friends they were. Sardar said, Rajaji knows Sanskrit. I don't know Sanskrit. I will learn Sanskrit in jail. And he learned Sanskrit brilliantly in jail. This was Sardar. So he is not just the huge statue made in China, incidentally, but he is the loveliest of human beings.
I had many more questions, but I had one more, which is a personal question. But I'm going to try and squeeze that in after I take some of the questions I've received from you. So I may delay you by a few minutes because I want to squeeze that question in. So there are a few questions from the audience, and I'm going to read them out for you to respond. One question, you said Tamil society is highly religious. How do you explain the paradox that one of the most radical, anti-religious, rationalist movements led by EVR or Periyar would take birth here?
If it were not for the disfigurements of religious feeling and religious activity, there would have been no Periyar. The question is a very important and valid question. Why did the Buddha arise in India? Because the Buddha is needed in India. Why did Periyar arise in India? Because Periyar is needed in India. There is such a thing called an excess of something and something called a reaction to that excess. Protestantism was the result of Catholicism gone astray. Not Catholicism, but the Catholic establishment gone astray. No Catholic establishment going astray, no Protestantism. Thank God that India has the energy and the insight to protest when something goes wrong. The Buddha, Sri Narayana Guru, Swami Vivekananda, and at the other end of the spectrum, Periyar, are great intellectual responses. One is because of the other. And to be oxymoron, let me say, thank God we have those who distrust God.
This question is from a 20-year-old to an 80-year-old. I didn't frame it that way, it's framed that way. We see a lot of parallels from your times to now. A dichotomy exists where India got her freedom through non-violence, yet today the state hunts down any dissent. How should the next generation make sense of the world?
I will not comment on whether it does hunt down dissent, but the 20-year-old whom I will not ask to identify herself or himself, the fact that this 20-year-old is asking this question shows that the hug is not so broad as to contain the dissent. The dissent will always be broader than any arms that seek to contain it.
How come there is a collective failure of imagination among all the well-read and erudite diplomats of the world in reining in the dictators of the world? How come there is this collective failure of imagination among the diplomats?
The collective failure of imagination I see as the title of a book at the next Hindu Lit for Life. Collective failure of diplomats is not different from the collective failure of the imagination of humans. Diplomats are humans, and let me tell you, every human being in her or his relationship with the family, within the family, especially with the parents and the spouse, has to be a diplomat, not in the sense of speaking polished words to get out of hard situations, but in speaking the truth without hurting the other person, something which most of us are total failures in doing.
This, I think, is a provocative question, which is why I'm asking it.
Coming from you, it has to be.
One of the pastors from this state of Tamil Nadu, one of the pastors, said that you need to punch Hindus' face and let them bleed so that Jesus Christ will forgive us. What will your good self reply?
Your question is about inflicting an injury. But why are you padding it by calling me good self? You should be consistent in the question. You have visualized violence, but you have couched it in the most unnecessarily polite conclusion. Jesus on the cross has said that he has taken his suffering into himself so that others may not suffer. This was his intention. This was his intention. And I don't think he wanted anyone to follow the example, either of those who nailed him or those who continue to be crucified. The crucifixion of innocence, which is another word for true greatness, and the crucifixion of greatness, which is another introduction to innocence, trained innocence. That crucifixion is continuous, is continuous. The Buddha, Christ, and Gandhi in our times have shown us to a very unresponsive humanity because we are distracted. We are distracted by so many things, have shown. The inevitability of their lessons for us, the totally inescapability of our receiving the lessons if we are to survive. But enough of these grim subjects. This is a Sunday morning. Am I right? Is it a Sunday morning?
Yes, it is.
And on mornings which we have heard Krishna sing in the mornings on Christmas Day is about Christ, not the Christ who was the subject of this question, but the Christ who suffers, but suffers like a human being, not some god. And his last words, Krishna, his last words, Christ's last recorded words were, I thirst, I am thirsty, I need water. It's a human being speaking. The son of Mary, saying, I am thirsty. And you know what was done? A sponge dipped in vinegar was placed on his lips. This is what humanity does. But we should remember the man who said, I thirst. He was something like God, but on the cross, he was thirsty. And then they carved on the cross. This is my final question. How many of you know what INRI on the cross means? You know INRI. One hand, thank God, one hand. INRI is the world's first example of sarcasm. Jesus of Nazareth, King of Jews, INRI. Sarcasm hurts more than nails.
We've run out of time, but I'm just going to take 2 more minutes because I do have one question for you. There is one more person who keeps appearing in your essays. Sometimes you name the individual, sometimes those who have read him can also see him in your essays. Everybody knows one of your brothers, Rajmohan Gandhi. Very few people know your other brother, Ramachandra Gandhi. And in a lot of your essays, he is there. So can you please speak about his impact on you? This is a personal question. on you as a person and as a thinker, as whoever you are, because I feel that he is there a lot of times in what you write.
Ramu, as we call him, Ram, we are four. This is not matters which interest anybody, but let me just say, we are four siblings. We were now, Ramu is gone, we are three. Ramu is the only one who was born in Chennai, in Madras. The rest of us were born in Delhi. He had a very special bond with Madras. He knew his Tamil very well. He loved Tamil food. He was more Tamil than I am. Let me just say two things about him. One was, I once asked him, I said, Ramu, I'm fed up. Nobody is interested in me as a person. Nobody is interested in you as a person. Who would listen to us? Who would even look at us if we were not grandchildren of Gandhi? You tell me. You and I, you have many professors of philosophy. Why should anybody see you differently? Because you're Gandhi's grandson. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people. Why should anybody look at me because I'm a grandson of Gandhi? I'm embarrassed. When somebody introduces me as Gandhi's grandson, what should I say? So he said, yeah, you're right. I think you should say, yes, yes, I am, but I'm also overweight and 5'5". Take it or leave it. He just placed it as irrelevant. As irrelevant, our being grandson, as irrelevant. Who's interested in my weight and height? As irrelevant. But then the same man, he organized on the 30th of January an anniversary which is coming very soon. He organized on 30th of January an extraordinary concert in Delhi. Krishna will be interested. And he said, Gopu, we can't start in Delhi. We have to have a South Indian touch. So, and how do we start? I said, Tamil Nadu, if you ask me, you start with Nadaswaram. I said, yeah, Nadaswaram, but how can I get a Nadaswaram? Is there anybody, shall we ask somebody to play Shehnai? I said, no, Shehnai has a different, then can you suggest Nadaswaram? Yes, there is a Nadaswaram. Yes, we will get a Nadaswaram artist from Tamil Nadu. What was the famous Nadaswaram artist? Islamic.
Sheikh Chinna Maulana.
Chinna Maulana. Then Chinna Maulana came and started. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, whom you mentioned, was in the audience. And Ramu said just this. And I mentioned this yesterday in the conversation, in the other hall. Ramu said, Gandhi was not stopped by 3 bullets. Gandhi stopped 3 bullets on their track, the bullets of hate, fear, and untruth. This is what Ram said.
Thank you very much, Gopal, for giving us such a profound and enlightening and emotional and invigorating morning. And thank you for this book. Please do buy the book. It's a collection of 100 essays. We have not even touched the surface of all that there is in the book, but I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Thank you very much.